Hi, my name's TechDave, and this is why I think you should buy the Lenovo ThinkPad T480 in 2023. So, before we begin, I'm going to start asking you to please like, subscribe, share the content with anyone who might like it. I just passed 800 subscribers, and I would like to increase that to 1,000, if at all possible. So, got that out of the way. I'm told call to action are the way to go. So, I'm going to run through some specs, some information about the device. We're going to cover extensively as possible my use case. But yeah, I will reiterate. Perhaps it would be extremely kind of you to like and subscribe. I'm just past 800 subscribers, aiming for 1K this year, and also maybe log in while you're watching so that my public watch hours go up, meaning that I can possibly even get paid for this. So that'd be really, really nice of you. So specifications. Let's have a look what we've got. We've got a Core i7-8550U, so it's a U series CPU. Base clock according to Windows is 1.8 gigahertz, but it's actually 1.99 gigahertz, and then turbos up to a max all-core turbo, I believe, of 4.1 gigahertz. We're rocking 16 gigs of DDR4, 2666 megahertz. Now this is because I bought in error a 16 gig set, and then the seller wouldn't let me return it. That's fine. I behaved a bit sketchily, but I found that the 16, because it came with one single 8 gig stick, and then I banged in two 8 gig sticks from this kit. And I found that actually, more or less, that's all I really need for my use case. Because for me, this isn't the heavy duty device. I've got, just off camera there, I've got my ThinkPad P51. Now that's a workstation laptop. That is for video editing, AAA gaming, so on and so forth. We'll talk more about that later. So I could put the 32 gigs of RAM that are in here, but I'm choosing not to at the moment because I have found 16 gigs more than meets my needs. So we'll talk more about that later. For storage in an internal caddy, so it comes with a caddy internally that can either be switched out for a 2.5 inch drive, or as I've got, 1 terabyte nvme Gen 3 M.2 SSD in the caddy. It originally came with the 256 gigabyte SSD. I've also added a full new top panel. So this panel is a replacement model that I got, which already had the wireless WAN cables through some pinch of luck. So shout out to, I'll put your name down here, but shout out to someone on Twitter who reminded me to do that. Because otherwise it would have been a nightmare to add wireless WAN cables and then sourcing them and then installing them and all this sort of stuff. Whereas I managed to get the whole display housing to replace the damaged one, which I don't know what I've done with it, but I'll feature some B-roll comparing them. So I've got a brand new top shell, which other than a few fingerprints is basically mint, or at least very good condition, with wireless WAN cables in it that I then attach to a Fibercom 4G module, which I'll try and put here, the exact model, which is rated for a maximum speed of 450 megabits per second, although I'm using, as I'm a loyal customer, and I'm on Virgin and O2 at the same time, so I get my home broadband from Virgin, mobile phone from O2, so they double your data, which is quite a cheeky bonus. So I pay for 5 gigs of data, £10 a month, but then I get 10 gigs of data because you get what's called Vault benefits, and they max out somewhere around the 30 to 50 megabit per second speeds, although I haven't thoroughly tested it. So later on in the video we're going to look into testing the real world 4G speeds. I'll find a spot with a really nice signal and stuff. And it's got 1080p matte finish IPS display, which you can see there as we roll through. It gets a little bit of reflections, but they're really, really limited. But the brightness isn't that great. So outside in direct sunlight, you have to have max brightness to be able to see it, which is a bit inconvenient for on the go, but it is a really nice display, 1080p. I have it at 125% scaling just because it looks like a 4K display with very, very small letters, and you see I wear glasses, so that might indicate something about my vision. It came with, so it's obviously got, I don't know whether you know, but the T480 has a built-in battery, an internal battery, and an external battery. So it came with a 3-cell 24 watt hour external battery, which again, you should see in B-roll. which gets around an hour, but then it goes sort of 60 down to about 60%, and then just completely erases all remaining battery. And it's got about 17 watt hour capacity from a 24 watt hour battery. There's obviously the built-in battery, which is about 24 watt hours as well, and then I added the 6-cell 72 watt hour battery. We'll try and get some B-roll in there as well. The nice extended battery, which is actually really useful because this is the CPU vent as far as I can tell, and it lifts it slightly off the surface, meaning that all that airflow is preserved with the extended battery, whereas when it's completely flat you get some mild overheating and mild thermal throttling. So that's actually a really useful feature, just to have it slightly raised as part of it. Next we're going to look at the ports, so we're going to go in with some B-roll again. I'm going to show you directly from where I am the ports, but then I'm going to try and chop in some B-roll. So let's start on top actually. So we've got gorgeous keyboard. I really like this keyboard. It's slightly more raised than the Chiclet keyboard of the X230 and the T430 and things like that. We've got a really fast acting fingerprint reader there, which I do not use. We've got all the nicely labelled function keys. I programmed, if you can see, I don't know whether this will actually work, whether I have set this up correctly. But you can program, there we go. So I've set it to just automatically open a browser. But F12 can be a custom hotkey in the Lenovo phone software suite using Lenovo Vantage. I'm running Windows 11 on it, by the way. That might be a controversial decision. I'm also going to dual boot it with Pop! OS in the future. That'll be in another video. But just the top is really nice. The track point is absolutely track pointy. It's delightful. There's a slight indentation to the keys, which is really nice. They're very clicky. And then, I've closed one note. That's not good. I do have an issue with it, whereas if you press slightly too hard on the actual knob, it won't move left at full speed. It will at right, but it won't move left at full speed, so that's a bit odd. Trackpad on it, oddly impressed. Genuinely impressed. I've got mine set up to switch windows with 3 fingers. Two fingers is scrolling, 4 fingers is Windows, and then up and down with 3 is for window changing. So I'll show you all footage of this. And then 4 fingers is 3 is volume. There we go. So you can customize it to your liking, but that's delightful. So on to the ports. On the left hand side we have Kensington lot slot. Again, this should be B-roll, remind myself to do it. SDXC card reader. Full Ethernet jack, which I do actually use. USB Gen 3.1, I believe. 2 USB 3 Gen 3.1 with 1 that can be set to always on in the BIOS. We've got a microphone headphone jack and a HDMI, I believe that's 2.1. It's quite a recent HDMI standard. On the front we've got nothing, but it's delightfully shaped. Let me pull out into the light. The back we've got these little hinges and a nice smooth sort of bezeled thing so that the battery doesn't feel out of line there. And then on the left hand side, mine came with a built-in smart card reader, the CPU fan there, which has got slight damage to it. I don't know whether you can make that out, but there's slight damage to the CPU fan enclosure. Then we've got the docking connector, which we'll come back to in a minute. We've got the power supply, which delivers data and power over USB-C, but is not Thunderbolt. And then next to that, we've got a Thunderbolt 3 connection and the docking station connection. Foreshadowing. So, eGPUs, hint hint. And yeah, let's see what is next on my agenda. Let me just do this. Oh, and the headphone and microphone combo jack, did I point that out? I did. It's relatively good quality business laptop in it, so there's not too much to think about that. So, with all the specs and features out of the way, I'm now going to take you to one of 2 setups that I have set up. One is out in my shed, which is relatively secure, set up for casual gaming and basically multiplayer gaming. So I don't like making noise in this room for various reasons that are private and not secret but private. I don't like to disturb anyone in the evening, so I can go out in the shed and not really bother anyone. Productivity and very casual gaming, because I've got my RX 480 out there, so I'll take you there. Also, just over that way, we have my video editing suite, which has the RX 6600 8GB in yet another Lenovo Legion BoostStation. So 2 Lenovo Legion BoostStations. One's on loan at the moment, but I do intend to buy possibly the Razer Core, I'm considering, because they seem to be more available, whereas the Legions are quite hard to come by. Even considering a Thunderbolt 4 enclosure when they come down in a bit of price, so they've got a bit of future proofing, as they are backwards compatible with Thunderbolt 3, so who knows. But we're going to start with the shed setup, so I will see you in the shed. So for setup 1, we've got this shed has featured before, but I've upgraded it significantly. Ooh, foreshadowing. We've got my acoustic guitar, we've got a little lamp, we've got my little trippy painting, we've got all my friendly deities. And then following down here, we go all the way along to my X200, which is what I'm using for writing and typing and general media consumption, but I managed to keep it air gapped. That has got 12 gig, and you know, if you know how small text files are, 12 gigabytes of my old writing on it, which have been backed up across the cloud and all sorts. But yeah, and then we've got router bringing in gigabit speed internet from the house, which then is distributed. There's my bag for my everyday carry video. And then I'm going to switch to wide angle. We've got my little desk set up, so we've got loads of incense, candles, the Buddha. We've got a radio tape, record and CD player. I've got some books that I'm reading at the moment. I've got my DSLR, I've got Bluetooth mouse and keyboard, I've got a PS4 controller, I've got these lovely bookends bought for me by my beloved mother, which is very nice. And then we've got a headset that goes down into the one link dock, which we shall explore more in a minute. We've also got directly connected to the laptop. Let's see if I get out of the light. Directly connected to the laptop, we've got this little speaker system. Oh, hold on. This little Logitech speaker system that is attached to this sub. We've got the Lenovo Legion BoostStation with the RX 480 and a 1TB SATA SSD in there, which is for all my games and video files, mainly games for this setup, but I do some video editing out here, but I've got another setup for video editing, which you will see later. And then a load of power. We've got a lamp in the background through this lovely diffusion layer. We've got a 1400 by 900 screen coming directly off the laptop, which we'll go through more in a minute. Then we've got a 1080p screen for main view screen coming off the eGPU. That's basically a connection error issue, because they're both VGA laptops, and I've only got one HDMI port for the converter, and then DisplayPort to HDMI does not transmit through the VGA to HDMI adapter for some reason I haven't quite figured out. So down on the actual laptop, we've got one cable coming off the eGPU, the Thunderbolt cable from there, and then I keep it closed, but when I'm putting it under load, I keep the top open on this little riser thing, which is like a little laptop stand. I've got another one of them in the studio for the other setup, this little riser. That's how it's angled. And then we've got the, hold on, we've got the cable for audio, the HDMI, which I can take off there, but it doesn't quite scale the monitor correctly. It doesn't do the correct aspect ratio. We've got the, so we've got what we got. We've got gigabit Ethernet, because the dock is limited to 200 megabit per second. The eGPU is limited to 800, but I'm getting full gigabit speeds through that, so up to 1000 megabits per second. Then we've got the Thunderbolt, the one link dock power adapter. We've got a VGA to HDMI adapter for the silver monitor up there. That's my TechDave Twitter, at David Bradley. Feel free to follow and at me. I could always do with more followers on Twitter. There's my YouTube channel, by the way. Look, 801 subscribers. You could be one of us. Subscribe. You know you want to. Subscribe. Sorry, that was a bit cringy. And then the one link dock has got basically this audio headphone microphone jack is a lot quieter than this one, and these are non-driven headphones. Then the drivers in them are quite weak, is the best way to put it. So I get better audio, a mic and headphone coming out of there with this little adapter. at much better quality. And then I've just got my mouse and keyboard. It's got a dedicated, like, you know, the rectangular power supplies that you get on the older models of ThinkPad, and then the USB-B 3. And then I've got 2 more ports there, 2 USB 3 ports free on the back, 1 USB 2 there, no, 1 USB 3, look, sorry, like 1 USB 3 and then 1 USB always on, so I can charge the phone as long as the eGPU is on and the laptop doesn't have to be on, and then you can sort of switch this on and off, and I use that to charge my phone. So that's the basic overview. So what I was thinking, I've got like vaping accessories and vitamins and minerals, and then, oh yeah, I'm trying to get you, this is just a little multi-tool, you've probably seen me use that loads. I'm trying to resist using my smartphone obsessively, so I've got the Nokia 2720 non-4G flip version, and I've also got my VoIP handset for my landline as well, which I don't know why I'm telling you about really, but it's quite cool, the version now providing VoIP. So what I'm going to do, I'm probably going to switch to just one quick game, just demonstrating the performance on this with some overlay metrics. So I'll get a tripod and stuff like that, and just jump into something to show you that this setup can game quite nicely. There's no RTX obviously because it's not my RX 6600. It performs as you would imagine an 8 gig RX 480 would perform, with only 2 PCI lanes or 4x connection via Thunderbolt 3, but we'll show you the more heavy duty gaming in the other setup. So that's the basic gist of my setup. It's really nice in here. I basically made my own childhood or teenage sort of fantasy bedroom as I would have it. And I've got my guitar here as well, so I can just chill and look out at the sunshine. But yeah, like, I love this room. It's awesome, and I'm really glad to share it with you. So I'll get a tripod. I'll show you with some overlay metrics visible, a little bit of a game. Future TechDave here. So we're looking into Elder Scrolls Online comparison using the integrated graphics. So what we're going to do is probably just whack them down to low and apply. So I'll pause and show you the frame rate on my back. And so after lowering my settings, I appear to have corrupted my game files because I had to exit because it was loading for ages. So we shan't be finding out any more about Elder Scrolls Online because I can't be bothered to reinstall 120 gigs right now. But we'll move on to Skyrim on the eGPU, which you will see in context of the rest of the video, so I'm just sort of reminding myself. Sure, when I'm gaming, usually I line myself up a bit more forward to it, but I need a room for this tripod. I've got this just a bit of wood with a very good mouse mat, my MMO mouse. That's 0, that's minus, that's plus, so the numbers are slightly deceiving. But yeah, that's your number keys across the top, which is quite handy for MMOs, which we are about to play, the Elder Scrolls Online. And I have this sort of on my lap. When the game loads in, I'm going to show you how it performs. Hundreds of frames per second at the moment, but I will pause, and then we'll see what performance we're getting just as a quick benchmark. Well, I will reassure you that there will be like full gaming benchmarks later in the video, so just be patient and wait around for that. Or skip through should you so desire. I mean, time is money and all that. But yeah, I'm going to test out some Elder Scrolls Online for you and show you how that performs just as a quick benchmark of the shed setup. And then we're going to go in, after I show you the studio setup, we're going to do some full gaming benchmarks and performance. So we are in, and for those of you with good eyes, you can just about make out we're hovering above 60 FPS. I'll just show you my settings.
We've got custom, medium, FX, AA anti-aliasing, FSR mode, ultra quality, medium, ambient occlusions off, low grass, smooth, etc, etc, etc. You can pause and have a bit more of a look at that if you'd like. But it hovers well above the 60 frames per second even during combat, and it's solid gaming performance. I mean, like, this is just for when I'm chilling in the shed and playing multiplayer. I've also smashed out some enlisted on this beautifully, which I might show you later actually, because I'm going to do a GPU integrated RX 480 and RX 6600 comparison, so you can see how things work. It's also probably pertinent to mention that this laptop does not have any discrete NVIDIA GPU. There's an option that comes with a discrete NVIDIA GPU. I did not get that because it was more expensive and you get cooling issues. One thing that's worth mentioning, I'm probably going to add the dual heat pipe, that basically the GPU heat and CPU heatsink, to my T480, because you get better cooling. And even though we don't have the GPU, I better log out, damn it. Anyway, blah blah blah. What was I saying? So you can upgrade the CPU heatsink and die to the version from the discrete GPU version and get much better performance and cooling. So I will be doing that in a future video, so like, subscribe, add in the comments if you want to see me do that. And then this is basically the whole shed setup. I've smashed out loads of enlisted on this. I've done loads of Elite Dangerous on this, on high to ultra settings. Flawless, basically. But you need to hedge your expectations with a setup like this in terms of the performance of the GPU and the U series CPU, but good enough for my liking. So I've showed you the studio. So we've got a 42-inch TV, we've got my i7 3770K, 32 gigs of RAM. Music production setup. The P51 is mysteriously missing for reasons that should soon become apparent as all my instruments. This is for watching the live stream, this is for Ableton, so on and so forth. And we've got all my mixer and everything. And then behind this curtain, we've got the new setup. So, look at this glorious setup. So we've got two screens. We've got the P51 docked because this can also be used for video editing on the P51. But at the moment we're using socials there, watching a lo-fi video, they're sick, and downloading Elite Dangerous for the benchmarking run, which we'll be using these peripherals for. So the first game we're probably going to benchmark is Elite Dangerous, but you might see it in a slightly different order depending on what I do. But the idea here is that I film all my TechDave videos from this angle. So we're going to dive in with the benchmarking shortly of video games. So here we are in Elite Dangerous. You can see I've enlarged the frame rate for you. Basically, yeah, so we're on high setting. Let me show you my settings. I'll be super brief. I've set it to frame rate limit off, 60 Hz refresh rate anyway, because that's all my screen can do. High settings. It performs about the same on ultra as it does on high. You just get a few more frame drops, a few more like sort of spikes. But you can see we're hovering around the 60 to 45 to 60. But in game, like, you wouldn't notice the difference. Like, to play it, it's well over that 30 frames per second playable threshold. We're getting about 50 to 60% CPU usage, 10 gigs of RAM usage, 50% GPU utilization. And this is running Ethernet directly into the GPU. And we're using the RX 6600 8GB here. And I've just done a little run because my last recording died.
Just did a little run. I'm in Manjalara. I'm just heading to Fremont Port to show you the different frame rates when you spike and lag and all that sort of stuff at different points in the game when it's more complex to render. The other thing to keep in mind is that on foot isn't great really. You have to go down to sort of high, medium settings for the on foot stuff. I'm not going to include that, you just have to trust me because I need to get more pace through this video. But as you can see, we're getting around 40 to 60 frames per second depending on what's going on in Elite Dangerous. So on to the next game. Game 2, now you can see right above the frame times and frame rate we get. My mouse is wireless, so it's acting a bit funny, but you can see where the spikes are and when they are. So just ignore the fact that I can't move properly with the mouse. It's a wireless mouse and I need to extend it. It keeps cutting out. But if we just show you basic movement, iron sights. So just in practice mode in enlisted. I need to switch to a wired mouse. You can see we're hovering around the 60 frames per second pretty comfortably with the RX 6600 or on medium settings. Probably push that to high. This was from when I was playing on the other GPU. So if you want to pause, there's my, let's use FSR as well. Look at that, lock 60 seconds with FSR. Looks absolutely beautiful. What you're seeing doesn't look anywhere near as good as what I'm seeing. Shoot my teammate in the head. Shoot the sky, that's hard to render. Target range. Obviously this will perform slightly less well with do some sniping as well. With the RX 480, but we're on the RX 6600 8GB. Hop this forward in the head. And you see we're pretty much just hovering around the 60 frames per second, so we can establish that, and this works. It also works really well on the RX 480. You saw I had it on media settings. I wonder if we can. This is only practice mode, so it's not really a true representation. If we try Ultra now, we're still getting in the 50 frames per second. And this game isn't really that well optimized. It's a good game, and they've made loads of progress with it, but it's not. And we have got FSR on as well, which doesn't necessarily indicate how it performs. So if we turn off FSR, and then you'll see, I imagine the frame rate absolutely tanked. No, it's still holding it. It's my mouse doing issues, not the game. So just out of curiosity, I decided to install not the special edition version, but original Skyrim, just to give the iGPU a fighting chance. So I'm just testing integrated graphics, and then to show, because it doesn't have the discrete NVIDIA GPU, it's only integrated graphics. So I was just curious to see. Let me zoom in a little bit. There we go. Now, if you've got good eyes, you'll be able to see that it's around the 30 FPS at the moment. It gave me high settings by default. Actually, see, this is running on battery as well, so that's just via HDMI to the TV. We're getting a 30 FPS. I think last time I played this version of Skyrim, I'm level 89, so it's quite a late save. Might even be one where I've modded it, I don't even know. So I'm going to pause until the game loads. Literally just as I did that, the game loaded. So let's see. It's a stuttery mess on high settings. So can we change that in the game? Display, no we can't, I remember. So yeah, iGPU, whilst the game loads, and in fact, hold on, I'm going to exit the game and find better settings for it. So we're in Skyrim with a heavily updated Lakeview Manor. I've set everything to low settings, 1080p, and we're getting about 30 frames per second despite how cluttered the environment is with a lot to load in. I should imagine if we go outside it's probably going to be a bit worse. Let's have a look. How do I even get out of here? I've made so much stuff I don't even know the way out. There we go. So yeah, hovering around 35 frames per second. Oh my god. I don't even know the way out of here. But yeah, like, you can see how much work I've done on this place. I've got a sick armor and stuff. But yeah, so low settings, 1080p, about 30 frames per second. So I'm going to attach the GPU in a minute, and then we'll get some context for that as well, with how much of an improvement the eGPU adds. Plus, what we'll be able to do is, oh, what was I going to say? Damn you, brain. Plus, it's running on battery as well, so when we've got the eGPU attached, we'll be able to get slightly higher performance. And just as to remind you, this is the regular Skyrim version, not Skyrim Special Edition. And actually, quickly before we do that, exactly the same settings. Let me show you my settings. Hold on. So we've got low settings, 1080p. I just thought I'd just try switching it to the actual built-in screen. Sorry, what I was saying, I had to pause for a second there. What I was saying, I switched it to the built-in screen. I remembered I had battery saver on, so you might find that we get slightly better performance, but it's hard to say. Put DGM, because I'm over encumbered. It's easier than having to walk very slowly. Right. So we are getting 60 FPS now without battery saver, but with still best power efficiency. So actually, if you look at the top right, all that stuttering and poor performance could be attributed to battery saver, or it could be attributed to having it on an external screen. But as you can see, we're pretty much locked at 60 FPS, low settings, 1080p. Now I'm just going to go outside, because I was curious about this. To see if we retain that 60 FPS when we're outdoors as well. Give it a second to load. Line up the camera a bit better. And yeah, I play as a filthy Khajiit. Don't at me. And so outside, my vampire blood boiling in the sunlight, we're getting a 30 FPS experience with like huge landscapes around us. Sort of little stutter there. The point being that actually just on the device without an external screen, you can play the original Skyrim pretty well. What is that up there? Is that an eagle or a dragon? Anyway, I'm not going to investigate. So that is the performance of it on integrated graphics with some actual fair settings, because it's using the built-in display and not on battery saver. So I thought I'd include both just to show you what kind of performance you can get. So I'm going to come back with Skyrim on the eGPU. So we are now eGPU'd. You can't see it behind that microphone. Is a Thunderbolt cable attached to the RX 6600 8GB, and just to see how it performs, I've clicked the Ultra button, ultra high quality, on Skyrim, just to see what kind of performance we get at that. So we've shown this is probably going to be the biggest improvement we've had so far. See, we've got Radar Relive, put an anti-lag.
And we'll see how long it takes to load in and what the context of that is like. Sorry about this little light flare there. Yeah, and it's loading in super fast. Press TGM so I can walk around. And we are at a lot, so we've gone from low settings on the integrated graphics, the Intel 620, to ultra settings on the original Skyrim with, where is the frame rate? Hovering around 60, so let me move around. You won't be able to see much of the screen, but we're pretty much at 60 outdoors in Lakeview Manor area. And you can see it's hovering at 60, staying at 60, so let me show you a bit more of the screen. So looking up to the sky, looking down into the complex stuff, we're getting a locked 60 frames per second. Look, it's my cow. Oh, I remember this save. This was a glorious save. So yeah, it's shown that the eGPU basically is the difference between low settings just to be able to maintain 60 FPS to ultra high settings at a solid locked 60 FPS. So I'd say that's a win. Demonstrates the principle perfectly. It's unsurprising. We could probably run Skyrim Special Edition on quite high settings, so I'm going to come back just for context with that. There's no point trying to run it on the iGPU, but I will be back with just Skyrim Special Edition quickly. So we're in Skyrim Special Edition. It's going to detect our settings. They're set ultra quality, so let's see how it performs. I should be back when the game is loaded in. And so on a slightly different save here, we are in, well, totally different save. We're in Skyrim Special Edition on ultra settings, so slightly more hard to run. No, I don't want to talk to you. And we're again getting pretty much a locked 60 FPS. I don't have the save from the other one, but yeah, it's hovering just, I think Bethesda, do they lock their frame rate? But yeah, it's hitting that 60 FPS. Looks gorgeous, performing really well. And it shows the difference of what you can do with the eGPU and the integrated graphics. So that was sort of the point of this section, was to show the performance difference between integrated and eGPU. The difference is night and day. It's astonishingly better performance. But the Intel 620 graphics can actually, can actually do what's needed of it. So all in all, I'd say a good gaming experience on this device, regardless of whether you're using an eGPU or not. I don't have the DGPU, the integrated NVIDIA 2GB graphics card. And I don't really miss it, because if I want to game on the go, I can use GeForce Now, or evidently play a large part of my library directly on the laptop. But then when I get home, I can play all my AAA titles at medium to high to ultra settings, depending on the year and the performance required of the title. So all in all, I'm pretty happy. So we're going to be moving on. We're in the benchmarking park once more. Not sat on the bench this time. Although there is benches, so bench with benchmarking. That's quite funny. So I've got the laptop tethered by a Thunderbolt directly to the phone. You're watching this on running on 5G. I'm just playing a bit of. Quite hard to pick it out. It doesn't look that bad in person, it's quite visible, but there's a lot of reflections in the camera. If you go up to full screen brightness, right, that's full brightness. You see the matte finish doesn't really, like it in person it looks like it does in the center of the camera. It looks like this. Those little lens bits aren't there really. And so I'm playing on GeForce Now. How do I click this game? On the balance setting. But yeah, it seems to perform more than adequately on 5G. And it looks really good because of the 1080p matte finish IPS screen. Just dismiss that for a minute. What we're going to do now is untether and then switch over to the 4G module built in and the cellular options. See what it looks like on my custom settings, which are visible vaguely here. 720p 30 frames per second, automatic bitrate. And we're going to see if it lets us play again. Oop. Same game. Analyzing network. We're getting about 10 to 12 megabits on this 4G module built in. Saying you may experience stutter, but that doesn't always stop us. Move the angle around so you can see a bit better. It seems to be running fine at 10 megabit per second. At 720p 30 frames per second. I specifically didn't choose a twitchy shooter for this one, just to prove that it's not the 5G as well. I'll unplug that. And you can see, looks pretty damn good. This slight bit of crackly aliasing, but definitely playable on the go with the built-in SIM card. So that's pretty cool. Now what else do I want to talk about? Do a quick Alt F4. Right, let's ignore all that for a minute. Well, now we need to talk about battery. Let's put it back so it's actually visible to you guys. So, on the battery settings in Windows 11, and with my custom power saving settings, hardware and sound, power options, 50% battery saver, it is saying we're getting up to 11 hours 45 minutes with the current battery configuration, which is the 6-cell extended battery and the built-in battery as well. But that's pretty good going. I've been running this for about 10-15 minutes. I'm going to use 7% of the external battery, but yeah, up to 12 hours, but then under load, who knows. But yeah, that's all I'm going to cover for the OTG, other than the fact that, like, it's a really, really bright day. If I was sat over there, you wouldn't really be able to see the screen, but in the shade, as you can see, the matte finish panel comes into its own. It's perfectly legible, readable, usable, even with lower brightness. If you go down to, say, there, that in person is still usable if you're just watching a movie or something, or browsing. But yeah, that's about it for now. So, in terms of productivity on the device, so let's see what we start with. I mean, how this screen, for example, I keep it on 100%, but they recommend 150 just to make it visible for those of you with poorer eyesight. But I keep it on 100 because I wear glasses, which give me 20/20 vision. In terms of the, like, typing feel and stuff, so if I just go down here, hello YouTube, this keyboard is a surprise. Like, there's nothing to write home about the keyboard, but it definitely does the job. And like, hold on, the key travel on it is quite nice. Like, it's mushy, but it's like, there's a nice click to everything. Satisfying sound. Like, oh no, I don't want sticky keys on. And the screen is gorgeous, basically. Let me just get you a better view. So, let's see sorry about my camera. So full 1080p IPS display, matte finish. So as you can probably see, if I do that, it doesn't catch that much light, and the matte finish kind of diffuses it. There's some pretty good viewing angles on it. It's not overly difficult to see in a variety of positions, so that's nice. What else was I going to cover? This is my little OneDrive document of my things. So keyboard, typing, keyboard, feel. Neat that I've done that. Basically, needless to say, this device can utterly more than smash out just general usage, office tasks, productivity, browsing. In my case, I've also got a cellular connection with O2, so I can do any of that anywhere I need to be. That's on average. It seems, I think you've probably already seen the OTG on the go footage part of it, but combined with the smartphone at 5G, like I've basically got it functions perfectly well for all my needs in every possible scenario. The internet connection on, so I've got an O2 SIM card, for example, and that seems to be around 10 megabit per second, but it should go up to like 50, but it's all signal based and how many people are on at the time. But yeah, I can't really complain about just general usage of the device in its laptop form. The other thing that's really handy, because I bought the extended battery, I don't know if I can show you this, but like it ever so slightly raises the angle of for the typing experience, so it's very ergonomic, like sat like this, like the palm rests are just right as well. Huge trackpad, which is magnificent. The keyboard, you can even hear just tapping it, it's suitably clicky and satisfying to use, and it's just kind of the right size for my hands. For me, this is like the perfect ergonomic situation for a laptop. So I can rest here, it's slightly angled upwards because of the extended battery. The key travel is just right for my taste, because I'm used to, say, the P51 or the T480 or the X230 with the chiclet keys anyway. So although my X230 does now have an X220 keyboard, and I do have an X220 and an X200, so I'm not dissing the old keyboards, I absolutely love them, but they've done a magnificent job with this. Basically, feels nice, it's comfortable, and I'd say get the extended battery anyway, because hell, even get a few of them. Like I would honestly recommend getting maybe a couple of these extended batteries at 72 watt hours, because then you're looking at around sort of 16 to 20 hours battery life. I mean, I've got the 3 cell, which is just down here. I've got the 3 cell, the 6 cell, and the built-in battery, and I get about 20 hours out of those 3. So even if you just buy one extended battery for on the go, and then what I do, because they're hot swappable, is when I'm docked or using the eGPU or plugged in, I use the 3 cell because it's slightly, how would you put it? Not corrupted, what's the word I'm looking for? It's degraded over time, so it goes, I think I said this earlier in the video, it goes down to about 50-60% and then just gone. And I've seen that is actually a thing that someone else has reported on Reddit about this device with the old 3 cells. So I think it's just something that happens with the 3 cells, they just get damaged over time. They're only 24 watt hour. Let's have a look at my one, for example. This is the Lenovo original battery. I don't know, you can sort of, if I just hold it here, you can pause. What is it, 1950 milliamps. And then we've got this replacement one, which is 6600 milliamps or 72 watt hours. So you could get a couple of these. I mean, this was £30, and it's about 95% of its capacity. Excuse me. These are probably like £10. Do you know what I mean? So you could even get a few of these, but I'd definitely recommend the 6-cell extended battery for that ergonomic thing. Massively extends your battery life, and at 20, 30, maybe even £40 for a brand new one, you could get 2 of these and have up to 24 to 30 hours battery life. So I can recommend. Now, next on the agenda, I have forgotten, but I think you'll be seeing video editing next and some results from that, and then probably that's about all we're going to do. So yeah, let's dive in with that. So I'm back in the studio. I've had some Krispies. I've got a webcam. I've got this set up here for my P51 to capture, but I'm just editing the video up to after the last scene you would have seen that I haven't got filmed yet would be productivity and what it's like to type on the device. But I'm just generating optimized media at 720p. It's going to take 45 minutes because it's all 4K 30 frames per second footage. It does help on this device because the CPU is a U series. So I'll just be, the next thing you see will be me on here doing some basic video editing, but not going to be too much of it. We've got a lot more to do, and I would quite like to keep the video as short as possible. So yeah, so this is the context. The T480 is down here. We've got the mouse and keyboard plugged in. We've got the Thunderbolt cable going to the eGPU, which is providing internet, Thunderbolt 3, 2 video. So I'll turn this monitor off just to take absolutely any extra strain off the device, but we'll see how we get on. Seems to be managing like a champ. You can, if you go in close, you can hear the CPU fan ramping up. You can hear this one's CPU fan ramping up as well. So it's a bit noisy in here. So I'll see you in the video editing process. Hello. Basically, right. So we've got the P51 recording via OBS via Elgato HD60. We've got the X220, which is a bit of a sneak preview. I might show you a little bit more of a teaser of that at the end, running on the center screen to have music on in the background while I record, and video edit on this far left monitor. So basically you can see the far left monitor is what's whatever around me. So I'm going to just do some brief video editing, and then I'll come back just to show you the render estimation and stuff like that. But wish me luck. I'm going to do some video editing on the T480 with the RX 6600 8GB. So I just went in, edited, and now rendering everything up to the on-the-go section of the video. So this section you're watching is just after that, because I haven't filmed this yet because I'm in the process of filming it. Therefore everything up to there I'm just rendering now. The timeline is how long? So far we're on about 34 minutes, and it's saying 3 hours and 10 minutes. Oh, 3:30. You can see up above me up here. So one thing I will say about this, I'm using DaVinci Free, so it's CPU bound. If I was using DaVinci Studio, you might have better results. But the U series CPU here, last time I edited on it, previous video, everyday carry video, we were getting, yeah, so just about 2.6 gigahertz, pretty much 100% CPU utilization, 10 gigs of RAM, nothing on the GPU, as you can see. And that's kind of the biggest flaw here, is that like you're CPU bound the whole way by this device for video editing. So you can video edit on it. If you're not using DaVinci Free or you're using Adobe Premiere, I should imagine it's probably quite sweet because you can use GPU encoding and GPU rendering. So it's just a case of hedging your expectations, understanding the limitations of the software, and realizing that this is a U series CPU. It's light,
it's compact, the cooling isn't as extensive as, say, for example, my P51, which has got similar clock speeds and slightly old, one generation older, but performs sort of almost desktop-like performance in my experience, and isn't bottlenecked by CPU rendering at all. And like this 30 minutes will probably take about 45 to 50 minutes at the most on my P51, so not really impressive. But in terms of, I generated optimized media at the start, which took 45 minutes for 35 minutes of footage, but I'd recommend doing that anyway, really, for a device. I do it on my P51 as well. I generate optimized media, so it's just hedging your expectations, realizing what's possible and what's not, and then just being prepared for a really long render time. So, but video editing definitely possible, especially nice with the RX 6600 So I will see you in the next section of the video, which I can't remember what it is, so you'll find out in a second. Hi, Future TechDave here. I'm in the shed, and currently my P51 is doing the heavy lifting with that original section of video that you've just seen, and I'm now doing, whilst that renders on the P51 and RX 6600, I'm doing everything from the OTG section, the on the go section, up to the clip you've just seen. Now, one is also actually needing 3 hours to render that section of footage, so vis-a-vis, it's not a limitation of the T480 necessarily, but something to do with the clips that I was editing and how complex it is, because that file is actually 30 gigabytes, so it does actually make sense. So everything you see after here is being edited on the T480 in the shed, and then I'm going to compile it all later on. So I just thought I'd point out, it's nothing to do with the CPU. It's not a limitation of the T480. The P51 is actually performing about the same, which I find interesting, and I'm not quite sure why that is. So I'll see you back in the video. So, conclusion times. Basically, this is becoming, at least in modern device terms, quite rapidly one of my favourite ThinkPads. There are limitations to it, which I'll discuss in a minute, but everything about it seems to be beautifully functional. It's modern. It's not going to have to be exclusively on Linux in the next year or two, like my P51 will. It's not a rendering beast, but so criticisms. I think 16 gig is good for general usage and my workflow at the moment, because I've got the P51. Moving forward into 2024, 2025, when Windows 11 it becomes the only Windows operating system that you can use with secure updates, I'm thinking probably 32 gigs of RAM to possibly even 64 with this, because it's got the Core i7 8th gen, but it's not the V Pro version. So I can actually have, I think, on this device, I need to test it, but as far as I can tell, I can have 64 gigs of RAM. Don't know if I'll ever need to use 64 gigs of RAM, but it would be an interesting experience. What was it? Pros, genuinely surprised with its gaming performance. Beautiful aesthetics, super light, really power efficient. I'm slowly coming to really enjoy Windows 11. It's sleek, the matte finish on everything, including the screen, I really like. The dual batteries is of enormous benefit. Basically, it won't replace my P51 because I need a workstation system, basically. And probably what I'm going to do with the P51 is migrate that to Fedora or even Arch. It's got Pop! OS install on a 256 gig SSD, so in the future, and in a future video, I'll be testing editing and gaming performance on this with the RX 6600 8GB in Pop! OS. So if you'd like to see more about that, hit me in the comments so I know whether it's worth making that video. when Windows 10 goes out of support, I'm probably going to use this as a Linux machine because I don't really want to part with it unless I'm buying a desktop. And I don't really want a desktop. I really like the workflow of multiple systems with eGPUs and like this, so I can switch back and forth between the two different systems, for example. What else can I say? Yeah. A couple of upgrades. Another upgrade would be you can get, even though mine only has the integrated graphics, you can get the dual heat pipe CPU and GPU cooler for this and considerably reduce temperatures. I have noticed throttling on it. I have noticed that, for example, when rendering video, it's stuck down at 2.4 gigahertz. Maybe that dual heat pipe, and maybe if there's such an option as an improved CPU cooling fan, let me know in the comments if you know they exist. But that might help with some dissipation with DaVinci Free, because it's not allowing me to use the GPU during encoding. Could solve that problem quite easily by just buying DaVinci Resolve or Adobe Premiere and then bypassing the need to allow me to use the eGPU with it, and then that would address some of those issues, because rendering even everything up to halfway through this video, the first half an hour of this video took 3.5 hours on the P51, so it's not a full replacement for me at the moment. It's made a valiant effort, and if it's all I had, I'd be very happy that it can do everything I need it to do. It can do it, and I could invest in DaVinci Studio, bypass all the issues that I'm having, because that's the only thing where I've noticed any real throttling or clock speed issues. Or overheating. Now it does get pretty toasty, but it is the middle of summer and I can comfortably rest my hand on here when it's under load and not get burned, so it's obviously good design. The only thing I haven't tested on it for now is Ableton. I want to be able to do music production on this device because it's got multiple batteries, and I can busk basically using a live Ableton suite, or do DJing or live performing or anything like that, and then just hot swap the batteries, keeping a constant chain of full batteries. So that's perhaps something I'll explore in a future video. Probably going to replace the CPU cooler heat pipe at some point. Definitely doing 32 gigs of RAM. Might see if I can afford 64 gigs of RAM, but because it's only 2 DIMMs, that's going to be an expensive proposition. So I'm probably going to do 32 gigs of RAM. I've got a 128 gig SSD that can replace the wireless WAN module, so I might put that in for a Pop! OS install, so as to preserve the install on my 1TB SSD, but that would mean sacrificing the wireless WAN module, so long term I won't be doing that, and ultimately I'm going to put Pop! OS probably on a small partition of the 1TB built-in NVMe SSD. But it remains to be seen what will work out to be the most productive and valuable use of these resources. And that's basically it. That's my conclusion. Sick laptop, love it, does everything I need it to do. Could benefit some upgrades, and I'm going to be doing some Linux performance in a future video. Let me know in the comments if you'd like to see that. 32 gigs of RAM, 128 gig SSD will be happening, so I can sandbox the two OSs, so I don't have the dual boot screen. I just go into one or the other pressing F12. Please leave any questions or things you'd like to see in the next video about this laptop in the comments. Thank you so much for watching, and have a lovely day.